My name is Msgr Kroetsch, and I was ordained a priest for Hamilton Diocese in 1978. Since 1981, I have also been the Director of Liturgy for the Diocese of Hamilton, and presently I am also the pastor at St. Pius X Parish in Brantford. I grew up in Kitchener, Ontario, and I was a member of St. John the Baptist Parish there. Growing up, I had the opportunity to see many priests in my life. Each Sunday when we went to Mass, there were several priests who came to preach, members of the Congregation of the Resurrection, as well as the parish priests in my own community. On my father's side of the family, there are a number of priests as well, so I was very familiar with priests when I was growing up, and I admired what they did. I was also very attracted as a young person to the Sunday Eucharist. Probably my vocation really is rooted in the Sunday Eucharist. I enjoyed going to Sunday Mass. I particularly enjoyed when the choir was singing. And I had a strong love for the Eucharist, certainly from the time of my First Communion on. Probably the seeds of my vocation are really in my First Communion and the opportunity to receive the Eucharist and to celebrate the Eucharist every Sunday fully from then on. In terms of some of the people who touched my life and helped me to discern my vocation more clearly, there were so many different priests. There was not just one priest who stood out for me, but many priests whose example of faithfulness really inspired me. And also in my family, my parents were very involved in our parish community, my mother in the Catholic Women's League, my father in the men's group. And as we were growing up, my brother and I also became very involved, serving, and I later became the organist in our parish. And so we were all very involved in our parish community. So in my family, there was a wonderful example of service and commitment to the church. And the one person, perhaps outside of my immediate family, who touched my life very much was my grandmother. She lived with us for a little while during her illness, and her faith was an inspiration to me. She was a convert, and her faith was very inspirational, and her words of encouragement very much helped me to make the decision to become a priest. I decided after high school that I would enter the seminary, and I chose to enter the seminary to study for the Diocese of Hamilton. I had been educated at St. Jerome's High School in Kitchener, and I was very familiar with the Congregation of the Resurrection, and many of those priests certainly inspired me in the priesthood. But I had a great desire to be a parish priest. I didn't want to spend my life teaching, and I wasn't sure about a religious community, but I wanted to be a parish priest, to work in a parish, because that's where I saw the priests up close. During the time that I have been a priest, over 30 years, the greatest joy that I have found in my priesthood is in celebrating the Eucharist and also in preaching. These are events each week, the Sunday Eucharist, when I preside and preach, that I look forward to with great desire and great energy. I've also had the opportunity as a priest to be very much involved in liturgical formation. I have a keen interest in the liturgy, and I've studied the liturgy, and I have a great desire to share my love for the liturgy with others. And so for a period of 4 years, I worked with the Canadian Bishops' Conference as the Director of Liturgy for Canada. And since that time, I've worked with many other liturgical groups and chaired many liturgical groups here in the province of Ontario and also throughout Canada. One of the great joys that I find in my liturgical ministry is teaching, is doing formation for liturgical ministers. It's always so exciting to see the liturgical ministers have a new desire and a new interest in the way that they can meet God in the celebration of the sacraments. During the time that I was director of the liturgy office in Ottawa, I also had the opportunity to travel across the country and to see so many different communities and to meet so many different people in different parts of the country. And it gave me a wonderful sense of the diversity and the richness of the faith that exists in the church in our country. So those are some highlights of my own priesthood, those things that I find the most exciting and the greatest source of joy. My celebration of the liturgy, my preaching and teaching. Certainly, as I think of my priesthood, a very important part is my own personal prayer. I usually get up at about 6 o'clock in the morning, and that first hour of the day is my time that I've carved out each day for my personal prayer, to pray the Liturgy of the Hours, to spend some time in prayerful reflection on the Scriptures, and to really prepare myself for my ministry each day. Certainly, during the week, the daily Mass in our parish is a great moment for me to be in touch with the Lord and in touch with His people. I find that to be a real touchstone for each day of my life as a priest. Without that special time each day, I don't think I would be able to accomplish much of what I really am able to accomplish as a priest. My ministry would be diminished greatly. So that time for personal prayer each day has been important to me, and I think is important to every priest. Each day, of course, is quite different from the day before, and it's different than the day to follow. Much of my day is spent meeting with parishioners, whether it's meetings to plan events or to prepare people for ministry, or meetings in the schools. In our parish, we have 7 elementary schools, so there's always lots to do in the schools, visiting classrooms or celebrating sacraments or preparing for celebrations. So much time is spent in preparation for these different events. One of the great joys, too, is, of course, to spend some time with the sick and the suffering in the parish, whether it's in the hospital or at home. While these can be sometimes challenging moments, they're always enriching moments to see the faith of people who are suffering and uniting their sufferings with Christ. So in a parish community, there's always so much to do. There's never a lack of work, but there's always so many opportunities to both bear witness to faith, to my faith, but also to be enriched in my faith by the faith of those in the parish. For me, that is the great gift of the priesthood. Not only to be able to celebrate the sacraments and to preach, but also to experience God in His people. And I think that's probably why I felt called to the priesthood in the parish, to a diocesan priesthood.